Hey guys, it's John C. Morley here, serial entrepreneur. Welcome to IFYL Inspirations for Your Life. It is December 13th, 2023. Tonight is Wednesday. Great to be with you once again. Thank you so much for being here. I do want to shout out and say a great big thank you to everyone because of you. We are now just about almost touching 85,000. We're at 84,800 downloads on the Inspirations for Your Life show. Our goal was to hit 100,000 by the end of Q1. We're very close to that. We'll probably be at 90,000 probably before the end of December, if not early January. So definitely going to hit that 100,000. All right, guys. So I do want to thank you for being here. We have another great show for you. I'll tell you about the master topic in a minute. We start on a Saturday. We roll all the way through the week, and we finish up on a Friday, ending with that master topic. All right. So I do want to thank you, whether you're here at 11 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock in the morning, 3 a.m., 3 p.m., 6 a.m., 6 p.m. Makes no difference what time you're here. I'm just glad that you're here with me. All right. So our master topic, ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for that? Well, before I give you the master topic, let me tell you who I am because I know you guys want to know who I am. Who is this guy that's on camera and all over the place? Well, there's a QR code. You can obviously scan the QR code if you can't see that through a TikTok or Instagram. Then just go to believemeachieve.com for more of my amazing, inspiring creations. I'm John C. Morley. I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I am also known as a podcast host and a podcast coach and a specialist in helping businesses tell a story that leads to them growing and being more scalable and profitable. And I typically work with companies, ladies and gentlemen, that bring in 10 million or more. And I'm very passionate about finding the truth, the story, whether you know it or you need me to come up with it. I do it from the truth and from the root. So really grateful for you guys for giving me that opportunity. I'll help you find the story and get your customers and clients curious about you so they ask questions. And yes, they eventually want to do business with you. All right, guys. So our master topic is strategic accent, unveiling the power of top-down approaches. We're on series 2, means we're in the second year, show 50, episode number 5. All right. So we're talking about top-down approaches, right? That's what we're talking about tonight. And so when we think about a top-down approach, I think a lot of people, get a little bit flustered on what it actually is. And so a top-down approach is something that you guys should understand because it's used a lot in management. All right. And so when we talk about, the top down approach, the biggest thing I think that comes to mind is, how does it work? So we talked last time about jobs are changed and completed by higher authority. We talked about all that great stuff. But, I think a lot of times people just don't get it. They don't get the fact of what a top down approach really is. So that's what I'm going to share with you tonight. A top down approach starts from higher levels of management, right? And it filters all the way down. Now, with a top down approach, management likes it. You know why? Because they actually have less risk. And because they have less risk and exposure, they feel that, this is probably the right thing to do. And that's why they do it. They don't know any other way. So that's the way that they basically, do. Our top-down approach is better. I don't want to say they're better because, I think companies should have a little bit of top, a little bit of bottom, because again, the bottom comes from the bottom up and you get, input from people that are working, that are in the job. When we talk about the top-down approach, we're talking about the management, the executive levels, and all those people and what they do to influence you to, make a decision. And so with top-down, we start with the fact that management pretty much dictates how things are going to go. That's the truth. They dictate how things are going to go. And based on that dictation, they're able to basically not have a lot of like what if games. What the heck is a what if game? Well, that's a great question. A what if game has to do with, you did it one way and we want to do it this way. But if you don't understand that, and you don't dive into it, you're never gonna really, um, embrace it. You're never going to embrace that. And so, I think a lot of people believe that it's going to be something that, just works, but a lot of times it doesn't just work. A lot of times the leadership team has no clue what's going on. And so if they have no clue, how are they ever going to make it? How are they ever going to do anything? And so, that might sound pretty harsh, but it's about the fact that when you understand something, you'll be able to get behind it more. So you might be asking, hey, John, why do executives like the top down approach? Well, it's all they know. And many teams go with the top down approach because it eliminates the confusion, the hassles, right? The risks. And you know what it does as well, ladies and gentlemen? It does something else. It gets them to be efficient and increases, it's increased to have increased organization. So when we think about a top down approach, right? A typical top down approach in the world works with the fact that jobs are altered and completed again based on higher authority. Employees receive specific tasks, and tasks are delegated by upper management. So we said that with a top down approach, if upper management makes the decisions and assigns everyone their tasks, there isn't much room for confusion or any really way error can happen unless the people just don't do what they're supposed to. But everyone's going to do what management's telling them, or they're going to get fired. So the top-down approach is great when we use it for a very complex problem, but it doesn't allow a person or an organization to get feedback from higher levels. It doesn't. And so the question we ask is, so how do you get management to stop using a top-down approach? Well, that's hard because once they've bought into this whole concept of top-down, they just feel like there's nothing else. It's like a kid that gets a new toy, right? They want to use that toy over and over again, and they don't want to play with any other toy. So again, when we think about it, the entire project planning process takes place at the management level. And then once an action plan has been created, the decision makers basically disseminate or communicate that down to the rest of the team to be implemented and usually without any room for adjustment. For example, let's say you were doing a top-down approach to a holiday party. Well, they would tell you what kind of party they want. They would tell you basically the type of venue that they want, which would get very specific. So you'd only be able to pick one or two because only a couple would fit into that regime. They would also tell you exactly the kind of food they want, the kind of cuisine they want. That's really important. They would tell you, what kind of entertainment they want at the party. That's also important. What kind of entertainment they want. And so if we can understand entertainment, if we can understand what people are doing, then I feel that life can be easy. But the problem is that if you have to embrace that whole structure, right? That whole structure of this is the way it's going to be, even if that's not the best way, right? This is the way the IBMs, New York Times, the other legacy organizations, this is the way they choose to operate. Is it the best thing? So top-down approaches, very few organizations are 100% top-down approach to management. Most teams apply a hybrid approach where they fall somewhere between the spectrum of combinations between top-down and bottom-up style. Because I think, like I said, you've got to get that feedback, right? And as I said, there are benefits to a top-down management style, especially for the larger teams that consist of multiple smaller teams or groups that function together in a broader organizational hierarchy. The thing is, it's a well-known management style, greater clarity, more accountable, and it's supposedly quicker. But the problem with top-down is that poor leadership impact. There's less room for creativity. Team are totally disengaged. They don't care what's going on. They just do what they have to because they're getting a paycheck. Low proximity to decision makers. So you can't say, hey, this is the way we should do it. But they don't embrace that concept because they really don't embrace that concept because it's not really about that kind of a concept. It's about the fact that what you're doing is going to be all about an end game. But the end game is not always reviewed to see what's best for everyone. It's just a lot of people drank the Kool-Aid of what top-down management is, right? And so when we think about teams right now are fighting to be creative. And when you take away that spirit, that tool, that energy to be creative, it's like you let the air out of a balloon, right? Having greater distance between decision makers and the decisions, that's a problem. I don't care if you're talking about software development, hardware development, if you're talking about just any customer service or client services. You got these people that are so removed and they believe that they're the best, but they don't want to get any feedback from you because they believe they are above you. Yeah. So a bottom approach allows decisions to be made by the same people who are working directly on the project. The top-down approach, everything comes from the top. So you're probably asking me, John, so an example today of a top-down company. Well, we talked about Apple. We talked about there's certain food companies. We talked about Amazon, right? And although it sounds like it could be profitable, it also could tank. Because one thing I know is that if we don't communicate the way we're going to do things to the team and to the customers or clients, guess what they're going to do? They're going to jump ship, and they're not going to want to be a part of you or your organization, unfortunately. So with decision-making, concentrating at the high level, the top-down approach allows for quicker and more decisive choices. It's valuable in time-sensitive situations or during emergencies that require immediate attention and action, such as in, you could be talking a hospital or medical situation, right? And so I think a lot of people don't realize the fact that a top-down approach is not the way you run every organization. And I think a lot of organizations now are starting to, let's say, smell the coffee, understand that you really can't have a full top-down approach all the time. If you do, you're going to have a dictatorship, right? So a top-down approach, you have strategy, you have justification, you have structure, and you have pitfalls. But you see, when you get a pitfall with a top-down approach, the higher-ups never admit it. They just change something and they go forward, and there's no discussion about why it failed. Just we're changing it, we're doing it this way, there's no discussion. I don't know. I think there could be some benefits, like we said, in the medical world, but I still feel that the bottom-up approach is great. But we talked about in software, right? Software, we start with the larger picture, and then we get to the smaller picture. If we do the bottom-up, then we're talking with the small individual modules, right? And then we're working our way back to the top. But a lot of people just want the answers. They don't necessarily care how it works, but they know that if their feedback is not valued or it's not being listened to, you know what happens? People get upset and they decide they don't want to be part of an organization, they don't want to be part of a structure. That's pretty tough. Would you want to be part of an organization that you never get asked for your feedback? Would you want to be part of that organization? I bet the answer is going to be no, right? If you couldn't give input to what you're doing, you wouldn't be able to make an impact in any changes. You would just be pretty much being like a pawn on a chessboard. You get moved whenever you're moved, but you don't really have control. And I think the problem with a lot of leaders in these top-down philosophies is they believe they've got to be the kingpin. They've got to be in control because that's their ego, right? And when they lose their ego, it's like they got to quick get back. So they get defensive. I mean, I think that's the main name of the game. We're definitely going to talk more about this, but tonight we talked about the fact that a top-down approach has minimal risk. It has more efficiency, and supposedly it has an increased organization. And so, yes, there's benefits, but I think I agree with the hybrid model that sometimes the top-down approach works for some things. Other times we need to get feedback from the staff and from people working on it, including the clients. Ladies and gentlemen, I am John C. Morley, serial entrepreneur. It's been an amazing privilege, pleasure, and honor to be with you this fantastic evening. Please remember that I am, yes, a serial entrepreneur, a podcast host, a podcast coach, and a specialist in helping businesses tell a story that leads to them growing and being more scalable and profitable. And as I said, I typically work with companies that bring in 10 million or more. And I love to help people find the root, to find that truth and story, to get people really curious about what you do. I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your evening. Check out the QR code at believemeachieve.com, and I'll catch you in another show.